Welcome to the April 15th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Beacon City School District. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
To the United States of America.
And to the republic for which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vicki, roll call, please.
Ms. Urson?
Here.
Ms. Wood?
Delayed.
Ms. Heath?
Here.
Ms. Kush?
Excused.
Mr. Shuttle?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Ms. Stadler?
Here.
Ms. Hewitt?
Here. Thank you. Matt, can you review the fire exits, please?
Yes, exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. So first we have open to the public. I see some new faces in the audience. I just want to remind the public that you have 4 minutes to speak. Did anyone sign up? You don't have to at all, but, so who would like to go first? Just state your name.
This is amazing.
It's on me.
Not yet.
Seems that off.
Should I sign in here too?
Nah.
Nice. Hi, everyone. I'll just speak up. My name is John Drew. I'm here today because my daughter is in 5th grade, and she's coming home with a lot of desire to have a smartphone. And some of her friends now have smartphones, and so we're having that larger conversation in our household. And that larger conversation has spilled out into the community, and now I'm having that conversation with a lot of anxious parents that are about to send their children into middle school. And as I'm a teacher myself and have been dealing with this issue for the last 10 years in a college-based environment, and we don't have a policy at our university that is equal across the campus. Students are allowed to come to class with their smartphones. And so we take it upon ourselves as teachers to manage that, and it's a very messy process. If you are very strict, it sort of gets passed around among the students that you're very strict, and sometimes they'll not take your class. And that can cause anxiety in the classroom for the person trying to deliver the material. It also is deeply distracting to be the teacher and see the students distracted by their phones. So it takes me off of my game when I'm trying to do my job well. And it has come to my attention that a lot of schools are now dealing with this in a very serious way. And some schools have found strategies to dealing with it. And there's now data out there that reflects some success stories. It's still early days, to be sure, and I understand that some of the strategies that have brought in some positive results thus far are expensive, and that's something that is on our mind in the community that's starting to sort of organize around this. I did see that in Newburgh they were able to get American Rescue Plan money to pay for the initial batch of these pouches that a lot of schools are now adopting as a strategy to having phones off during the day. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that, and I don't need to go into those details. But one thing that I thought I would share is that if there's any kind of limitation on behalf of the board in terms of writing grants to get that kind of funding so it doesn't come out of budgets that are already compromised or might be compromised in the coming school year with changes to the budget coming down from the state office, or coming down from state. That would be something I would help organize other people if that's of interest. Again, I'm just sort of beginning to grapple with all of this in my household, and I felt like the next logical step was to come here and share my enthusiasm for wanting to support your process and the work that you do here. I'm very much appreciative of your service. And if you get a flood of emails in the next couple days, it's coming from this organization that's starting to happen. But again, it's all coming from a place of wanting to support you all in trying to make good policy, because it's not easy. We know that. And I think we have a group chat going on right now where we're exploring some of the different feelings that some people have when you tell them that their child might not have access to their phone, and how that has to be approached carefully and strategically. It's like threading a needle, so to speak. And maybe we don't insist that all of the school district gets rid of phones all at once. Maybe there should be a trial run and we collect some data. But that's the end of my 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Hannah Ramat. I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm a concerned parent whose child is also in 5th grade, going to be in the middle school next year. And I'm aware we have a lot, me and my husband have a lot of knowledge about the research that smartphones and social media, how they negatively impact children's mental health. Not everyone has this information or knowledge, and that's one thing that I am concerned about, and that I have ideas to bring to the schools and hopefully work and coordinate with some PTSOs about an information night, or to try to get some more information out there. Because I think once you know the facts, once you know the research about how these smartphones, ever since they were introduced in 2010, and social media, how there's a correlation between decline in children's mental health. Both anxiety, depression, suicidality have been on the rise. I don't know if you're familiar with Jonathan Haidt's research. He's a social psychologist. He just released a book, The Anxious Generation, and he talks in it a lot about this, not correlation, causation between these phones and the decline in children's mental health. So as a mental health professional, I'm very concerned on that front. As a parent, I'm very concerned. And I am aware that you guys have been talking about some policy around this in the middle school, and I'm deeply appreciative, and I'm really glad to see that that's being discussed. And I wanted to just come here to add my perspective and 2 cents about if there was some kind of policy that addressed removing the phones from the classrooms itself, that's a dramatic improvement. That's great. Kids can have more attention, focus in the class to learn. However, it doesn't address the full breadth of this mental health issue, which is kids having access to their phones in the hallway, in lunch and recess, where they're really supposed to be connecting, socializing, interacting with each other face to face. And yeah, so I propose, again, I know, you guys are doing a lot of work around this, but our perspective is that the policy that would address all of this would be a phone that would be locked up for the whole day, for the full 7 hours, like with the pouches John was talking about. Do we have more time? Another minute. Yeah, I just wanted to share, just on a personal note, we have, pretty restrictive guidelines around phones. We're not allowing our kids to have a smartphone until, maybe high school. And, again, we're aware of all of this research, so that informs our decision. However, our son, at one point, I allowed him to be on a group chat that he could see through. It was a phone that we just hooked up through the internet, where he could just use it for that. And he was privy to some pretty horrific images after October 7th of war in Israel and Gaza, because a kid sent a link through TikTok. And what happened is, before I figured out how to block it all, and then I went in and made sure, to block it all, but when you click on that TikTok link, it takes you right to TikTok, and then it immediately, once the video that is shown ends, it takes you through a TikTok scroll. And so these videos, these images are just like served to them over and over, and the next video was these, bombings and rockets and people screaming in this horrified way. So, it's an issue that really creates a lot of anxiety, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of parents aren't aware of the full extent of what their kids are seeing, and they don't know how to block it, and they don't know how negatively it can damage them. So, yeah, the last thing I want to say is that, okay, guess that's it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everybody. My phone, so I don't have a timer.
We'll time you.
We got it.
Can you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Gabriel Pages. My son is going into high school next year, and my daughter's in 4th grade, and she's going into 5th grade, so not middle school yet. But I just felt like I just kind of adding to her point regarding social media, right? I mean, the phone's an issue. It's a physical object, it's fun, it's addictive, right? But it's what's being fed through the device that is also harmful, that we're seeing, you know, the CEOs of companies in Capitol Hill getting like a slap on the wrist, the same way that like the tobacco companies got a slap on the wrist in the early 90s, you know? And then it turns out that, yeah, like cigarettes do cause cancer, they're super harmful. But for like 50 years, it was like the cool thing to do, and everyone did them, you know? And if you smoke, that's fine, no judgment, you know? But I think that in hindsight, we're gonna see social media in a similar way, where we won't see the effects of it until much later, when these kids turn into adults, you know? And their attention span is like nothing, you know? They're constantly looking for gratification or a sense of self in 20-second video bites, you know, doing dangerous, stupid things like riding subways, you know what I mean? Like a lot of kids got killed in New York City. So, yeah, I didn't have anything planned to say, only that like, it is a serious concern with like just about every parent that I talk to, you know? And it's, in my mind, I'm like, well, just ban the phones, right? Like just ban the phones at school. They all come with the phones, end of story. But I know it's obviously more difficult than that, because some parents may want their kids to have a phone for whatever reason. Some kids' parents are divorced, and like one parent needs to reach out to them. I totally understand all that, you know. I always make it easier in my head than it is in reality. In our house, our kids just don't get phones. Like my daughter's not getting a phone until she's in high school. I know her. She likes getting into things, so she's not getting it. My son's not getting a phone either, right? But it doesn't stop him from seeing something that his friend has in school. Like, here, look at this TikTok thing, you know what I mean? So, anyway, thanks for letting me ramble here for hopefully under 4 minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a very different topic, though perhaps helpful. My name is Karen Smythe, and I am a trustee of Duchess BOCES. I was elected 3 years ago in 2021, and my term is up, and I am here running for re-election. And I wanted to come and see you all in person. The last time I think I was in front of you, it was in your auditorium, so it's very exciting to see this wonderful space that you're in. It's been a busy 3 years. I was on the Personnel Committee. I am currently chair of the Audit Committee and chair of the new Facilities Committee, and I'm also on the Personnel Committee. As I believe you know, we did accept the resignation of our District Superintendent, Jason Shatelik, and Deputy Superintendent Jody DeLucia has been put into the role of running operations, and so I don't believe that you will see any hiccups in the services that you're provided. We are very confident that Jody, or Dr. DeLucia, I should say, is very competent and will do a terrific job as we go through the process of searching for a new superintendent. We also successfully brought the capital project to completion. If you haven't been to the new facility, I highly encourage you. It's a wonderful, wonderful space. I am a Dutchess County native. My background is in business. I was born and raised in the city of Poughkeepsie, and our family's Dutchess County construction firm, C.B. Strain & Son. I know I was involved with the old Beacon High School. I'm not sure if we did plumbing, heating, and sheet metal work for the new one. I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was a while ago. But I subsequently, so I worked for our construction firm until we sold it. I then worked for a nonprofit which supports an historic garden in Hyde Park, designed by the first female landscape architect, Beatrix Farrand. If you've never been, it's a wonderful place to go. And some of you know I did run for New York State Senate in 2018 and 2020, and I am now the mayor of the village of Red Hook. I have a particular passion for career and technical training. I think for our students to understand what the possibilities are is very helpful. Some students really struggle to make it all the way through high school, and if they see something right after it that gives them a reason to go there, I worked with a lot of incredibly talented tradespeople, and even for them, as they were learning their skills and getting paid well, they were all in the union, so they had a terrific training program. Some of them were really good at what they did. They learned a lot. They could have gone on to become an engineer or a project manager. I am a big fan of thinking about learning, never stopping. Just when you graduate high school, you graduate college, you're not done. You're going to learn forever. I went to graduate school at University of Virginia. Thomas Jefferson would say the first year you were in college was your first year. Your fourth year was your fourth year. It wasn't your final year, it was your fourth year, because he believed very strongly that education continued on through a lifetime. I really like that idea. I've really appreciated the opportunity to work with Nick Millis, who's the principal of the Career and Technical Institute. I think we can do more and more to expose our kids to what's possible and to give them a leg up towards that. I also think for our communities, there are a number of careers that are right here. And if we can give them the leg up in the training, for example, EMS, if anyone wants to be an EMS, everyone can use one of those. Building inspectors, we need a lot of those. And even in the health field, both mental health and medical health, again, the more we can do as BOCES to provide the opportunity to support all of your students, that's really what I see my role as trustee is to be one who can make those connections, to remind you that BOCES is there to work with you, and that's why I'd like you to consider voting for me again. Thank you.
Thanks for making the trip here, Karen. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Okay. So moving on to our workshop, we were talking about the budget tonight. Governor Hochul just made an announcement about an hour before the meeting started, so I don't know if you've been able to crunch the numbers yet since then, but we can talk around it.
Numbers are public for
Yeah, not yet.
Is that officially a final budget, though, or is that
It's a conceptual agreement.
Okay.
So our presentation tonight is a conceptual
Conceptual.
agreement. In response, just briefly, we are, the policy committee is looking at the policy students and electronic devices tomorrow. So we've done at least some initial revisions to that. I think we see it as a process. The administration primarily of Rombout and Beacon High School have been involved in talking about it with it, but with the board, the conversation will start tomorrow night. And I'm a UVA grad too. And I had this huge smile on my face because I don't find very many around these parts, so that was really nice. So, all right, so just briefly about the presentation. So I set this little goal like a month ago that I was going to get off the Google slide template that I've been killing you with for the last 7 years and try to do something with a little bit more pictures and more whatnot. So 90% of this is me and Anne-Marie, and then this little secret helper came in and sort of pumped it up a little bit right before it went public. So, we started just by talking about the governor announced a conceptual agreement. We don't know the details. Our guess is it's probably not great for Beacon like we've been predicting for the last couple of months. That said, I want to spend the first part of tonight just really talking about all of the successes we've had in the budgets of the last 7 years, because we have many. And we really view this year's budget or this year's budget proposal as an opportunity to really keep the momentum going on every single one of those initiatives that we started over the last 6 or 7 years. So it may not be a budget where we have like a laundry list of things that we're adding, next year. But it's a budget where we're really proud to be keeping these wonderful things in place that we've fought pretty hard to get. So just want to start, I always start every budget talk by just saying like what we have in our budget is a representation of what we believe in. A couple of years ago, we went through a process. We had stakeholders from across the district develop our mission and vision and our 3 belief statements. Diversity is our strength, an equitable education, and a culture of care in the district. And we really feel like the budgets we've been putting forth for the last several years, and, including and especially this year, represent those beliefs and our mission and vision. So part of that strategic planning work had us focus on 4 areas. I'm not going to do an in-depth dive on that tonight, but I am very proud to share that a number of things have sprung from that strategic plan work just in this school year. We've had lots of different kinds of professional development, from reading to curriculum development to secondary educators talking about AI. We've had a huge growth in community engagement events from our elementary up through the high school. I'll plug one a little bit later tonight. We have a community resource fair. When is it? Next week? And but that's just a long list of events we've done this year. Growth in extracurricular clubs. We're going to get into that a little bit deeper later in the presentation, but that's been a huge growth area for us as a district. And then part of what sprung from this, some of it was already in existence, but we've had our courses with DCC for a number of years. We have this new partnership with Marist about developing teachers. We're going to be offering a class from Mount St. Mary that's focused on teacher education, and we're starting next year, really small step, but through BOCES. This program's been in place for a number of years. We've never participated, but we'll have 3 kids doing the BARD program at BOCES next year too. So all of that work is really connected to the strategic plan work, and it's really just a lot of it's come up just this year. So there's, this is going to be a lot of bragging at the beginning of this presentation because we have a lot to be proud of. So I'm going to talk a lot about what our budget supports. That's over the past few years, and this budget we're putting forth supports it as well, a 90% graduation rate. The reason why some of this is a brag is that's one of the higher graduation rates in Dutchess County. Our budget supports pre-K. This year we offer 6 full-day pre-K classes across all 4 of our schools, and we also have special class integrated setting class, so a 7th pre-K class, and that is far more than any district in Dutchess County offers. And that's not a proportional statement. That's just straight across the board. We offer more in district than any other district. This is something that we've been working on since my first year here. Our budget supports small class sizes, K through 12. I think the biggest initiative with this has really been at the elementary levels over the last few years. Our current class size average hovers between 17 and 18. Rarely does it get past 22 in terms of the range. The overwhelming majority of the classes we have at the elementary level are below 20. And that's something that's been a very specific and strategic effort from the board's budget work over the last 7 years. Our budget has supported an exponential increase in extracurricular clubs. I was trying to do some math. I'm still working on the math part. I was trying to do a comparison of 4 years ago with the elementary school clubs and where we are now. We had so few 4 years ago that I think the exponential increase would be in the 500% growth range or 600% growth. It's across all 4 of our elementary schools, a wide variety of interests. It comes from A, common sense, but B, there's a lot of research that talks about kids' connectedness to school and how oftentimes that comes from a few things: relationship with teachers, relationship with peers, but also doing things outside of the classroom. At the elementary level, it's less sports, it's more of these clubs. And then middle and high school, it's a combination of sports, extracurriculars, co-curriculars, everything. But we've put a lot of resources into this, and this 24-25 budget supports that. Our budget supports college and advanced coursework. I'm going to add, when we do this slide again, we're going to add the class we're adding from Mount St. Mary about teacher education. That's not up there yet. We're going to be offering that next year. This is what we currently offer in terms of AP, DCC, and then the high school classes we offer at Roundabout. Pictured there is college and career night, but also our student who received one of the top scores on the AP drawing class in the world. Our budget also supports growth of our music program to some of the highest levels of participation that we've seen at the high school. So years ago, we wrote a grant that allowed our instrumental program to go down to 4th grade. We had a blip with COVID just in terms of COVID really was disruptive in the music world. But despite that, we're seeing now the growth from adding that class in 4th grade to our concert band at the high school is the biggest it's ever been. The chorus at the high school is the biggest it's ever been. And we're really, really excited that our budget continues to support that. And this is a big one. Our budget supports increasing salary and benefits to our employees. That's a given. We have contracts. Contracts are usually multi-year with our different bargaining units. I love this picture here because it's a representation of people across many of our different units that were at the Harlem Wizards game back in February. But it's just one of our continual goals. When I started 7 years ago, a lot of our units were kind of in the bottom quartile of the county in terms of salary and benefits. It's a hard fight because we're fighting against districts that have a little bit more resource-wise than we do, but we're really trying to move all our units up that ladder. So before I get to that, this little brag part could have gone on, but these are some of the core components of things that we've added budget-wise over the last several years. So our goal in this continuing budget, we're going to get into like the hard part in a second, but our goal is that all of these things continue, not just in a sort of a passive way, but we build momentum around each of these things. So we wanted to point out all those things that we were just bragging about, one of the highest graduation rates in Dutchess County, more pre-K than any other district, like the coursework we're offering, that we do have one of the lower tax rates in Dutchess County too. So this may be a theme that we talk about sort of moving into next year. So this is like a preview. But this is something that we're sort of starting to butt up against with all the things we want to do here in the district. Just another visual of our tax rates going down over the last 9 years. So we made this slide 12 hours ago. So there was a little bit more of an update 2 hours ago. But the indications we've been getting from, I have the state council of superintendents, Anne Marie has the state organization of business officials. Everything we're reading with that is schools that are in the school districts in the Save Harmless category, which Beacon is one of them, that we should not be expecting an increase in foundation aid. That's been the messaging for the last several weeks. The budget, the governor announced a conceptual framework on a budget agreement today at 5 o'clock. I don't know all the details of what's in that. My guess is that it is probably, is there such thing as a flat increase? A flat. I shouldn't say flat and increase together, but our foundation aid is most likely be flat going into this year. The reason why our budget presentation is going to be in 2 parts, part 1 tonight and part 2 next week, is once we get the number from the state, we'll be able to finalize our final number for the budget. So what we've been working on for honestly a number of months, kind of expecting this, is making some adjustments to this predicted change in state funding, because we haven't, when the governor put her budget out several months ago, even if the understanding I was developing is even if it doesn't get fully enacted this year, her goal is to enact this in the coming years, and that is to not increase funding for districts that aren't gaining students, essentially. So what we're looking at to deal with this right now is implementing something called position control. And so that is not just like, we're not just cutting across the board, but we are looking at positions across every aspect of the district. When we have someone resign or retire, we are going to go through a process of whether that position needs to be replaced. I don't want to cause any panic. We have several classroom teachers retiring this year. It doesn't mean we're not replacing like that teacher or those programs, but we are looking at what we offer. And it's not just at the teacher level, it's really in every single aspect of the district to see can we function next year without this position, or do we need to change how this position works moving forward. So that is something that's going to be a process kind of as we go through next year. It's not going to be something that we can just sort of announce next week, like we have it all worked out. But there are several things we're looking at. As the board's aware, over the last couple of years with the rescue funds, we have been adding some positions that are either more behind the scenes support or direct support to teachers. And so we are looking at those just in terms of whether we're able to continue those. That's just an indication of kind of what we're looking at with this. But we're looking across all aspects of the district. We're also looking at all of the contracts that we have through BOCES. Most of our contracts are through BOCES, but through BOCES and other areas to see if we need to do those moving forward or do we need to reduce them either way, but we're looking for savings there. And then lastly, grant opportunities. So I mentioned 5 years ago, we started that 4th grade instrumental music through a state grant. And that provided a huge lift that enabled us to then incorporate it into the budget a couple of years after the grant money ran out. So we're going to talk about EV buses in a second, but part of the proposition to the community is if the community votes yes for this, we'll only purchase those buses if we get a grant to cover part of the cost. We've learned just the other day that we have been awarded the grant conditionally, obviously, pending voter approval. So that's another example. I think in the governor's proposal, she is really focusing on reading. This was a few months ago. I'm not sure where that is in the conceptual agreement that I got announced today, but part of what she mentioned was grants. So if we want to continue some of the robust PD offerings, we need to write grants for those things. Like we're really going to go after grants more aggressively now that the federal money is kind of drying up and that the state funding is changing. Like Beacon needs to be more aggressive with grants, even more aggressive than we have been already. All right, so Anne-Marie's going to take over and just talk about some of this part, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, thank you. So the tax levy percentage has grown 3.91%. And the factors that affect the tax cap calculation. So we've been talking the last couple of years about tax-based growth factor, which has been beneficial for Beacon. And that takes into consideration all the new properties that are coming on the tax rolls every year. So you are allowed to grow more to accommodate the building and the infrastructures that are going on. Consumer price index is a max at 2%, so that's really where that 2% tax cap understanding is overall. A capital exclusion, so you're allowed to add back to the tax levy calculation your debt less what you're getting in building aid for that, so that we do have an increase in the capital exclusion. And this is the first time in probably 10 years that we got an employee's retirement exclusion. So if the employee's retirement system, which is our non-certified staff's pension, if that goes up more than 2%, you're allowed the differential that's more than 2%. We saw that very early on with the tax cap. When it started, we had a TRS and an ERS, but this has been the first time in a while. So we were gave a small amount, but every little bit helps. Oop, I did something wrong. This way? Okay, sorry about that. So even though we haven't 100% finalized the budget yet based on the aid, this will be the levy, because the levy is what it's calculated to be. So just to give you an idea of an estimate for Beacon, Fishkill, and Wappingers, that levy spread over the communities would be, the tax rates in the $13 and change, and the estimated tax increase based on the median home value is between $88 and $106 for the year. Now, I also want to mention that we use the assessments from last year, and as you know, assessments have been going up, which is what has made the tax rate decrease over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So this is based on last year's assessments, and what we anticipate is as Beacon is growing, there are more properties coming on the tax rolls in portions. So not only are you seeing, you might be seeing your individual assessment change at your house, you're also we're seeing other properties come in. So the tax levy is the total amount that we could raise in taxes. If you have more properties come on the tax roll, then you're spreading that same amount over more properties. Meanwhile, each individual person will pay a little bit less. So that's probably the easiest way that I could explain that. So we're anticipating this basically to be worst case scenario because we're assuming that the assessments will increase for next year. And we'll know that in July, and we'll talk about it again before we do the tax warrant in September. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep doing that.
So just some newer items that are included in this budget are funds for professional development, especially around reading. We've gone over that back in a March meeting. Funds for a pilot new reading program. So when I say pilot, I'm not talking about like a couple of teachers. We're talking about grade levels across the elementary level in BCSD implementing a new reading program next year. So that is a new program that we're funding. And then funds that support this continued enrichment for clubs and field trips. So, some of this is new, and we are very committed to keeping those things in place.
So EV bus. So on the ballot in May, our first proposition will be about the budget. The second proposition will be about EV buses. So last year, we asked the taxpayers to vote on one EV bus, assuming that we would get, I use the figures there. We thought the cost at that time was $466,000, and we would get $250,000 as a grant. And only if we got the grant would we able to buy the EV bus. So unfortunately, the current cost of an EV bus and a level 3 charger is $495. So the language that the taxpayers voted on last year isn't sufficient for us to buy an EV bus. So what we want to do is just amend the language, and we actually want to add a second. So anticipating knowing that we were going to go forward with the second bus, we did apply through the New York School Bus Incentive Voucher for 2 EV buses. And we were successful in receiving the grant of $257,250 for each bus. So we will change the proposition language to include the change for last year's approval of the bus and then to add a bus, so that at the end of the day, if it's a yes vote, we will be able to buy 2 EV buses. That's just basically what I said. I was a little ahead of myself. And we also will have a bus proposition for regular gas buses. So there is a mandate to totally change over to EV buses in 2035. These 2 buses we checked with Central Hudson. We had consultants come out. The 2 EV buses that we would like to purchase will definitely work with what we have capacity-wise now. So we'd have to install 2 EV chargers. We would not have to upgrade our electricity at this time. But going forward past that is another conversation. It would be more about having more electricity brought to the bus garage. It would be about doing some renovation work at the bus garage to have a plan. So our first step was to buy these buses. We'd like to use them on different runs to see how they work. We'd like to train our staff on how they actually run, because all the bus mechanics need to be trained. So we thought this was a great step in the right direction to try to fully mandate going forward. But we do need these new buses, and just to keep the fleet up, to bring kids to and from school. It's worth noting that we get 59.9% transportation aid, so that's more than 50% back in transportation aid. And we do, the bus proposition of 485 will be spread over 5 years. It'll be a bond anticipation note, and the 5 years matches the state aid. So we try to keep the impact to taxpayers at a level.
Just before you get to that,
Okay.
just a couple of things about the buses. Last year, the voters approved changing our catchment area for for kids qualifying to ride the bus. It used to be 1.5 miles, now it's 1. Our ridership is up to 65% of our students ride the bus either one way or both ways every single day. That's up probably about 20% from a year before. So that's like a great example of kind of a small measure that we put on the ballot. It didn't have a huge cost to it. It's made a huge difference, especially at Roundabout and BHS for kids getting here on time, cutting down on tardies, things like that. About the electric bus, I just want to say yet another thing. We went through our list at the beginning, but it's yet another example of us being part of leading the way in Dutchess County. I think there's one other district that's doing a similar process as us with the EV buses. So we're really proud to be moving forward with that and looking forward to the voters taking a look at that on May 21st. Capital project. We're in the midst of our conversations with that, but we've kind of already done a full meeting on the capital project. But again, it's a $49 million project. Our building aid ratio is 67%. We do have a capital project website, the 2024 capital project website. But just to reiterate, this is a project where we're really looking at keeping up with the upkeep and then moving our buildings beyond that stage, modernizing our buildings, really improving like the windows, the roofing, like the lighting, et cetera, throughout our buildings. Also looking at adding cooling centers to our elementary schools and the middle school and like the cafeteria and the gym. Looking at upgrading the tennis courts, looking at upgrading the baseball and softball fields, looking at some pretty extensive renovations in the theater to make sure we're keeping up the upkeep on that. So we're really excited about that capital project being part of the ballot too. So we really feel like the budget proposal we're putting forward supports our students for all the reasons we've elucidated it, and we've probably missed some. But it's just a proud moment for me to put this forward, knowing how much time and effort we've put into this, knowing how much support we get from the board and the community. So I like bragging about the things that we've accomplished in the budget. So when people ask me what's new in the budget, well, I don't know what you do at this part, so we're just going to leave that screen. But when people ask me what's new, it's really about keeping these things we fought so hard for over the last 7 years. That's the main theme of this budget, and also dealing with what's coming to us from Albany in a really thoughtful way. We're trying to see it as an opportunity for us to build even tighter systems in terms of long-range financial planning, utilization of resources, trying to have systems in place that are based on like the number of students in a school and things like that. So it's a moment for us to use our resources more thoughtfully, to create some thoughtful processes, but also to keep the momentum going on all the things that we've gained over the last several years. So Tuesday next week, that is the meeting where we approve the BOCES budget. But we wanted to put the final budget in front of you that night with the final budget number. We will provide a little bit of like what we're moving forward with position control. But I do just really want to say we're not at all saying that in a panic our staff or the community way. We're just looking at ways to just thoughtfully use our resources more. We're not cutting programs. We're not cutting like entire, like parts of like our extracurricular offered or things like that. We're not eliminating a bunch of classes. It's nothing drastic like that, but we are looking to just across the board where can we pull some of our resources back. The shortfall we're sort of predicting from the governor's budget from where we are right now is about $900,000. But we feel like we have a plan in place. We're trying to tighten it up, but we have a plan in place to make that shortfall up in a way that we don't feel like kids are missing key things or that we're stepping backwards in all these things we've gained too. So, what questions do y'all have or comments?
What is the reading program? Is it a specific, something we might have heard of that you're thinking about?
We're going to be before spring break, teachers took a look at all the resources. They gave input. The elementary teachers did. They gave input to SAGI. We're going to be doing that at the May 7th board meeting to get like really into detail. We are looking at just choosing like 2 or 3 grade levels across the district to start it in. We think starting at something across 6 sixth grades would be hard in year one.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit to be continued.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just love the fact that you're looking at it from a smarter lens, right? Not doing the same old. We're not adding, but we're taking what we're having, we're enhancing it. Such as with the college offerings, the dual enrollment classes, right? We're expanding there. That's a smarter way to look at it. So I appreciate that lens.
Thank you for all the work. I know it's been a real roller coaster with flying blind with what we were.
Yeah. Well, I want to give a hat tip to the board. We did a retreat back in January, and I think it was probably one of our better retreats, and we focused on, long-range financial planning, and we've really embraced it, and it was really well timed with everything that's going on. But I think, we also, with all the things we've gained, I think we're going to be having future community conversations in the upcoming years about, do we want to keep all these things and how aggressive can we be? And then also thanks for the advocacy efforts too, because I don't think that is over. And I always will put my plug in with all that we've done with pre-K. I really think a powerful avenue of advocacy is the state changing the way they fund UPK. And I think we're hearing rumors that it may be part, or I don't know, I didn't see the press conference. Did she mention pre-K at all?
No, she did not. I mean,
So if the change in that formula didn't make it into this budget, I really think that's an avenue, because with the amount that we're doing, if they change the formula, it's a huge gain for us. So,
right, given that we're already doing it.
so anyway.
Well, I just wanted to also say thank you. We knew this was going to be a bumpy year, the last year of our federal aid, and this does not make it easier for us. So it's a sort of like a 2-1-2 punch. But I think that the growth that we have achieved over the last 7 years has been done really carefully and always thinking about let's do things that we can maintain and not just like add programs every year for the sake of adding programs. So it feels stable and like not like a loss that the kids will feel, which is really important to me. So thank you
Right.
very much. And I
Right.
agree
One
that
of the things we talk about when we're reviewing all this stuff is this something our students are going to notice or our classroom staff, right? Like we that's always like the first questions we're asking with all of this. So, having that less foundation aid from the state is difficult. I do think I think we're better positioned than a lot of districts in dealing with this, with what I'm reading and hearing about. But it is going to have a different feel, but I'm going to be all about the grants next year. So I can't wait for the governor to start announcing all these grants that she said she was going to put forward.
yeah, that will be interesting. Anything else from anybody? Harsh, Sarah Lynn? Yeah.
Like a general question. So is there a general direction that we're taking for like the advancement of courses? Like for the AP courses, are we going in a certain direction for like a subject, or is it just like generally what teachers are available and can they teach a course? Like which way are we expanding?
Harsh, that is a good question. The honest answer is it's a little bit of both. There's like the practicality to it in terms of what teachers available to do it or qualified to do it. And then there's Mr. Dwyer kind of balancing what he's hearing from the students in terms of what they're interested in. I know in Meredith and I spoke to all the government classes last fall. From several of the classes we heard about, we'd like to have a couple more AP classes added, especially in the science area. So that's something that's like a mix of both. It's like a direction we're trying to develop, but also it ultimately is about staff too, who we have to do it, who we might need to bring on to do it, things like that. So I'm not giving you like the clearest answer in the world, but it's kind of a mix of both.
That's good.
One thing, Harsh, we're looking at, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more next week, but it's something that you've talked a lot about over the years, is we're looking at developing some level of like study skills development at the middle school. So we're kind of exploring how we do that, but that's something that That's like a strand that we're thinking of trying to sort of weave into the middle school curriculum next year too. And I know that's something you've mentioned over the years too.
Thank you. Well, now we're on to student representative comments. Do you guys have any special notes you want to share?
So we kind of want to touch upon what you guys were saying about the pouches and stuff for the phones. And I want to start off by saying I do agree there are a lot of like negative impacts that the phone does, but also it's not a one size fits all type of thing. So I do remember someone mentioned there being like a trial run, see if it works. And I do think that the trial runs should be subjected to maybe younger students. Like in my opinion and from my experience, older students like in the high school, it's their responsibility to be able to handle their school and their school life and their other life outside of that. And so I think that to be able to build that, we need to discipline it from a younger age. So more restrictions in the middle school or something like that. So when students go into the high school, using the phone more as a tool rather than a plaything during classes. So me, for example, like I feel like if my phone privileges were taken away, there would be a huge problem for me because I have to drive people to and home from school. So I need to know who's coming with me, who's staying after. If I'm staying after, I need to let them know way ahead of time so that they can find a ride or something like that. And then what if there's an emergency at home that I need to be told of immediately? Like I need to be able to get that text from my parents and things like that. And I do think that overall, it's more the restrictions should not be, I think, dealt with in such a restricting manner, like the pouches. I think that it would be better off to start with, hey, in elementary school, no phones in the classroom or something like that, you know? And then as students get older, they should be taught how to handle it as a tool rather than a toy in a way, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just wanted to add on, and in my opinion, I feel like it all comes down to digital literacy. I know someone talked about the usage of tobacco and stuff. That eventually got implemented into the curriculum where kids they're telling kids don't smoke. Now, I think over time this will probably become in a curriculum about social media and all of that. But until then, I don't know if there's a surefire way of protecting kids from all of that's coming in from the internet. Especially with digital literacy that we learn and in classes, I think there's like a certain standard that you have to understand how the internet works, especially in the ages that we're going into. I think it's hard to like protect kids 100% from the internet, and then them also developing a certain level of digital literacy skills later on. So there's like sort of an issue that when it comes to that, but yeah, I do agree. It does become sort of like an attentive issue. Kids tend to not pay attention all the time, and they're always, going for that, like, what can I do while I'm doing this type thing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you about this. I talked to my sons about it at length also, and I think like most things, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach that is perfect. So I'm glad we're beginning this conversation tomorrow. It's something that I've wanted us to have for a long time, and I agree. Watching my kids juggle their activities during school, track changes or some activity changes, things are sort of turning on a dime all the time, and I'm not sure. I'm old enough to have been in the age where when you made a plan, you stuck to the plan, you just did the plan, but that's not the world we live in anymore. And so there's a lot of last minute changing, and they definitely use it to communicate and for jobs and things like that, which, a lot of high school students are dealing with. So I do agree that a different approach at high school and middle school is definitely appropriate.
And elementary.
And elementary, yeah.
It's happening younger and younger.
Yeah. So stay tuned, but thank you for your input there. Reviewing the agenda, there are a few changes. 1310 South Avenue Elementary with teachers added to kindergarten orientation leaders. 1313, new agenda item added, appoint senior prom chaperones. 1611, approve estimate from Clove Excavators for site work at South Avenue as part of the capital project. And 1612, approve proposal to purchase the Daikin unit ventilators for JVF as part of the capital project. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, and the board will return in about 25 minutes?
So moved. Second.
Flora, second by Eunice. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm also in favor. We are 7 tonight. Passes 7-0. Thanks. Superintendent's report.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I've been sharing this, but it's more of a reminder that we're doing community conversations around the capital project / budget starting next week. So I've also been doing PTO meetings for the last several weeks. But next Wednesday, April 24th at 7, we're going to be doing a Zoom webinar. And so we'll put the Zoom link on the website. We'll put it out as many ways as we can. But social media, email, et cetera. But I think primarily we're going to focus mostly on the capital project. But we want to take that opportunity to spend a few minutes on the budget. And so Zoom webinar, people can submit questions and we will then go through them all and try to answer them. And then we have 2 in person. These are for like the community at large. May 2nd at 6 at the Beacon Rec. We're going to do an in-person conversation about the capital project and budget. And then May 6th at 4:30 at the Howland Library, we're going to do like a presentation and a conversation. And then we've created a more enhanced budget webpage and capital project webpage. So I started sharing that out with the community over the weekend. And the one thing we're still working on is like the FAQ. So we're going to have an FAQ for the capital project and one for the budget. The capital project one, we have this Google Doc that whenever I go do one of these conversations, I come back and add some of the questions to it. So we want to get the FAQ up and out on the website by the end of this week. And then we'll refresh it once a week until the vote with the new questions that we get. So I've done 4 of the PTOs. I have a conflict with the high school one. That we kind of had a little communication mix up on that one. So I'm not totally sure that Wednesday one will work, but I've done the 4 elementary schools, working on scheduling roundabouts for the capital project. So we're getting out there, and it's great to talk about this stuff, and we're excited to do these more community-wide ones too. So I will try to find some other ways to get the word out. We'll see if the Beacon Free Press can run some stuff or other avenues so we can get a mix of folks attending. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you. Board comments. Semra?
I know the parents aren't here anymore, but I'm glad that they came and spoke to us about the organization that they're doing around cell phones, and I'm looking forward to that policy discussion. And it was also good to hear from the students. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Kristen?
Yeah, thank you again for all the hard work on the budget and staying sort of nimble. And it's been a really challenging few months and budget season. And like going forward, we're going to practice for some things or some skills we're going to need going forward. Just to echo what Semra said, I am really glad that people came and spoke about this issue. I think it's really important to raise these things with the board, in public, with each other, because I know there isn't one single solution, but I do think the more that we're all talking to each other, the more likely we are to find something that would work for us. And I think that it was great to hear the student perspective because they provided this point of view of how it's a tool that really helps them organize their day. I think that we have to bear in mind that those are older students, that they are very successful students, that they are students who are participating in a variety of activities and are very responsible people and might have been much less likely to be impacted by the negative impacts of cell phone usage and social media. I've done projects for social media companies, and I've seen kids who really, one of the things was around problematic usage, and it'll break your heart. This one kid really described how he was so paranoid about not getting to look at his phone. His dad built this thing out of a cinder block to like mimic something you could buy online where you lock your phone in it. And he became so panicked in the middle of the night, he climbed to the roof of his house and threw the cinder block off of the house so that it would break so he could get to his phone. And so I think that that story always stays with me, because within that same study, there were kids who were like, oh, you can put a timer and limit your usage. And then I just put it in sleep mode and go to bed. and they were, there isn't a one size fit all, but there is, we would have this discussion around anything that could be introduced that could cause a lot of harm and derail a student's success. And I think that we really do need to have the discussion around the transition from, well, first of all, entering the building in elementary school and then going into middle school and then middle school, because that is an age where everyone is sort of reshuffling their identity and their status, and all of that happens naturally anyway. But once you layer cell phones, so, group texts, social media, it's hard for adults when we see something targeted at us, and we know who we are, we're in our lives, our careers, our homes, our families. A child that's just trying to figure that out, this can be really devastating to them, and they might not even tell anybody about it because they're so ashamed. So I think we really need to take time and unpack this and find something, and it should include a parent engagement piece where they dive into what can be done at home, because I think if everybody sort of jumps together and they have a common language, it'll be more successful, and it's not just a district policy thing. But I really do welcome the discussion.
Thank you. Eric?
I agree with I'm glad these parents were here. We've been getting some emails as well. I do think the easy thing is just to say they're not allowed, but I think there does need to be a discussion about it. I think having the student perspective was awesome. I know we've probably seen articles. I know Newburgh has a policy. I think Poughkeepsie has one. But those policies also, there was some education prior to it. They didn't just start it in September without a conversation taking place. So I do think that the community and the students need to be made aware of what's happening. And I think there is some, I'm glad that our group tomorrow is discussing this. I think that's a really good way to handle this, and I'm sure that we'll do it the right way. So I appreciate them coming and giving their perspective. And then I also want to just say I do appreciate Matt and the work that Anne-Marie's doing with the budget page and the capital plan. I think having those FAQs is great. The community can go to them, and I appreciate the hard work that you're doing on that. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you. Eunice, sorry, I skipped you.
That's okay. Policy committee meeting tomorrow happening. I just want to make sure it's at 6 o'clock, or did we change the time? Because I think I might have heard you guys
I
discussing.
think both Matt and I have a doctor's appointment. I'm worried I might be a little bit late, and I think Matt has something that might keep him a tiny bit too. So
7 o'clock?
yeah,
Yes.
we were actually thinking we'll make because we have a prawl meeting tomorrow too. So we'll do that at
Okay.
6:30 to 7.
Yeah.
A shorter meeting.
Is that
and
going to
then-
be enough time for you guys?
Yeah, I don't think we have a
Yes.
ton to cover.
We'll have a power agenda. It'll be fine.
All right, so when is
policy-
Prawl is at 6:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the policy at
Policy.
7, and I will email those parents that I.
Okay, that you mentioned, yes. Thank you.
And if we could put something big on the website,
Yeah, maybe even a pop-up.
It's changing to 7.
yeah.
Times
pop-
have changed.
Something pop up, but I can change it on the calendar.
Okay,
Okay.
super.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd also like to mention, I know that Matt mentioned the community resource fair that's happening next Thursday, April 25th, 5 to 7 at the gym at the high school. And the last thing I want to mention is I know that the Beacon players have their play this weekend, and I just want to wish them luck, and I hope everybody makes it. I'm excited to watch the play.
Me too.
It sounds really good out in the hallway, wow.
That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Anthony?
Just, do we have another date for facilities or no? Or audit? When's the next audit?
I think with audit,
There is a,
Remember.
the next time we have that on the calendar is May 20th.
Okay.
Which which I may have a conflict with, but. And it's the day before the budget vote, yeah. So I don't know if we want to keep that or if we want to change it around.
Should we do it after the vote?
I think right now, in terms of facilities, we're so much in information sharing mode. Like, it might make more sense to see what the vote result is, and we'll probably have a lot to talk about.
Do you guys want to move it to the 27th, which is the Monday after the vote? Would that
Is
work?
that Memorial?
Memorial Day.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, we could, if we wanted to do it that week, there's the 28th or Tuesday, June 4th. I know June gets crazy with, kind of award ceremonies.
Could we do it before the board meeting on the 3rd?
We could do at least one of them.
One of them?
Yeah,
Third?
June 3rd.
June 3rd. Does that work so should we do, when do we plan on facilities?
June 3rd?
That's fine.
Yeah, because then we'll be
Okay.
moving into the capital project.
Okay. Okay,
6
That's
o'clock.
F&O. The 3rd.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Okay.
And another thing that I had was, I'm not gonna be here next, on the 23rd, but after we're hearing the budget presentation today and stuff, I'm in support as to how the district's moving forward.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me know you won't be here. Laura?
Yeah, so we had the Dutchess County School Boards Association meeting recently, and after that, there was the advocacy committee meeting, so I'm going to talk a little bit about both. The meeting presentation at the DCSBA meeting was from David Little, who's the president of New York State Rural Schools Association. And he actually had some really interesting things to say about the budget and the pattern of the budget. And he basically was talking about how every governor that has stayed long enough has had the same pattern, that they come into office, they give a healthy aid increase, and then they spend the next 2 years recalibrating to get funding under control, and that's sort of how they sell it. And then he had mentioned something, and I hadn't caught this, but that I guess there was some news leak to Newsday, and the budget director had said they needed to recapture money to give it to the school districts that really needed it. But without mentioning that there's no mechanism to redistribute that money, and a lot of the aid that was being cut was from high-needs districts, so it was just kind of a strange thing to say. So he was full-throated and this, what they're doing is wrong, and we need to advocate around this. And he was a really big fan of bringing lots of different organizations on board, including PTOs and the school community. And one thing that he said is, and he actually had previously worked with he's an attorney, and he had worked with both sides of the legislature, if I remember correctly. And he said, if one person complains about something, a legislator will say it's a coincidence. If 2 people do it, it's worrisome. And then if they hear from 3 people, they'll tell their conference that everyone in their district is saying this, and I have to do it. So, the volume does help after a while. He also said it's okay to get creative with who you're reaching out to. He said, organizations like local realtors who depend on cities and towns that can attract new people, and for whom, school districts are a big part of that consideration. Now that so much is electronic, to take advantage of the fact that it's so easy for people to share messages out, and to bring organizations on board like chambers of commerce. I mean, organizations you might not have necessarily thought of before. So that was a really interesting and eye-opening discussion. And then afterward, the advocacy committee talked about sort of what we did this year and how we want to do it differently. We agreed that we need to sort of move up our timeline. So we're going to start coming up with our lobby ideas in summer so that we can go to NYSBA's annual business meeting and the convention sort of ready to have those meaningful conversations and gather more support leading up to Lobby Day. We are also looking to expand our outreach to other counties, including Orange, Ulster, and possibly Columbia and Greene, and make more connections through the Lower Hudson Education Coalition, just to talk to them about what they're doing for advocacy and how we can work together and collaborate on our efforts. And I think a big part of this is that when you look at NYSBA's resolutions, so their 2025 kit came out today, or would it be their 2024 kit? Anyway, their kit for the following year came out today. And there's just so many resolutions, and so many of them are very overlapping. And it's hard to coordinate across counties, but maybe if we did that a little more at the regional level, we could have more unified voice, and we're not all voting on these very similar resolutions to end up as part of NYSBA's resolutions sort of guidelines for the year ahead. We were also talking about how, because they have so many resolutions, it's really hard to understand what they're really prioritizing in terms of what they're advocating for, how they're doing it, what the follow-up is, and what's going on. So we also want to do a debrief with NYSBA in summer, just to find out, talking to their government relations reps and saying, hey, which are the priorities you're focused on? Because these are the ones of your approved resolutions. These are the ones that we think are the most important. And we want to know what you're really doing about these and how you're following through. And we hope that this is where you're putting your energy. We would also like to try to have a legislative breakfast in the summer, just to have conversations when things aren't quite so crazy, which right now, obviously, they are. We also talked about thinking about a presentation for the 2025 NYSBA conference. It's too late to do a presentation for this year's conference, but maybe something next year as we're thinking about what we want to advocate for, what we want to spread information about. Special education pre-K came up a lot. And the idea around that is that a lot of boards and a lot of people outside of the people directly working on those issues don't really understand what's going on or what the stakes are. And that might be a really good place to have that conversation and to share that information. So that was a thought that came out of the meeting as well. So that is the shortened version of the meeting. And I look forward to the work that we do over the summer. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That was a short version.
I am so sorry.
No, that was just.
I don't know what to edit.
No, it was good. I was like, what's left?
Pages.
The only comment I have is I just wanted to let the board know that we decided to push the conversation about the RFP for legal counsel to after the budget vote. So we'll do that in June. I did speak to references for both of the firms that both of the firms that we spoke to, so I can give you guys that information when we have the discussion. Okay, moving on to new business, we have a roll call vote. Can I have a motion for the resolution for our authority to purchase buses? Anthony, second by Flora. I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Beacon City School District hereby adopts the resolution authorizing the purchase of school buses for the school district of the City of Beacon, Dutchess County, at a maximum estimated cost of $485,000, and authorizing the issuance of $485,000 of bonds of said school district to pay the cost thereof. Are there any comments or questions? You want to do the roll call? Thanks.
Ms. Urso?
Here.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Heath?
Yes.
Mr. Shutter?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Ms. Stadler?
Yes.
Ms. Hewer?
Yes. Thank you. Passes 7-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have pulled from the consent agenda.
I have 13.08 I-10 and 13.12 M1.
13.0,
08,
and what was the second one?
13.12 M1.
M1, okay. Can I have a motion to approve 12.01 through 16.12, last 13.08 I-10 and 13.12 M1?
So moved.
Eunice, second by Laura. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm also in favor, it passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve 13, can I do them together?
Sure.
13.08 I-10 and 13.12 M1.
So moved.
Second.
Anthony, second by Kristen. Comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain?
One abstention. I'm in favor. Passes 6-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Eunice, second by Flora. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Passes 7-0. Have a great night, everyone.